For at least the last decade, XCOM has been the champion of the turn-based tactical genre. And for good reason. From the mixture of personality and writing for the story to the balance in unit abilities and team compositions, you can't help loving every minute facing off in a gradually and consistently stressful and all-out fun campaign that will make you leap for joy when you're lucky and want to break something when you're not.
Alien facility lead, 92%. I saw that.
Yes. It's the emotions that XCOM has produced in the player, combined with the replayability that keeps you coming back for more, that has allowed it to reign supreme.
No! Okay. It's like, why is he coming back?
And now, there's a newcomer to this genre that's more visually magnificent, audibly stunning, and comes packed with its own explosive dose of fun straight out of the Gears of War franchise. Gears Tactics is coming in hot for your entertainment. Hi, I'm Charlie, and in this video, I'm getting right to the point and walking you through what I believe are the most notable and significant differences between XCOM 2 and Gears Tactics, from the perspective of a veteran in the turn-based tactical genre. If you're a seasoned XCOM player and you're looking to get into Gears now, this video is for you. Please keep in mind that all the footage you are about to see is pre-release footage, and the feedback and commentary presented is based on the experience of Act 1 only in Gears Tactics. Okay, first I want to talk about how the game makes the player feel right off the bat. In XCOM 2, you start with a pretty weak group of soldiers, hardly capable of holding their own against a force that is adapted to combat on their own terms, essentially starting the player as a technological underdog. Arguably, at least in the beginning, your enemy is on par, if not slightly more capable than your rookie soldiers just trying to resist enemy rule. You'll have 4 soldiers, and you'll face off against enemies in about a 2-to-1 ratio to what you bring to the battlefield for most of the missions in the game. You'll be feeling a little weak at first, but you'll progressively get better as you manage to deal with the somewhat few enemies the game throws at you at the time, at least before the Doomsday reinforcements rain down and ruin your day. But in Gears, this is totally different. Gears is unapologetically about fast-paced action, and lots of it. It puts you onto the battlefield with a couple of powerful soldiers who are capable of really powerful skills that in many cases will one-hit enemies with ease, but then maintains the balance when it also hits you with twice to 3 times as many enemies as you're used to facing in XCOM. Fighting in Gears feels high impact and really fun. It's really gratifying to charge at a huge grenadier with tons of health and damage resistance, slicing him open from behind with a bayonet with an overly sized powerhouse of a man named Sid, an essential character that you'll meet at the very beginning of the game.
We can't kill him. Might as well annoy him.
There's also a fair amount of blood and gore in Gears, but if that's not really your thing, you can disable it in the settings. One note I also believe is worth mentioning is that Gears combat maps are gridless, meaning soldiers aren't restricted to the tile-based movement that XCOM 2 has, and allows for more flexibility in unit positioning. Although more often than not, you will find yourself adhering to the same flow of tile-based movement, since you'll likely want to be snapping soldiers to cover. There are a few unique situations in which Gears may allow you to get out of a situation that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get out of in XCOM 2, such as this little avoidance of Overwatch that I'm showing you here. That move there takes advantage of the very thin blind spot that the overwatching unit has on my soldier and allows me to get out of it without being shot at, something that you would never be able to do in XCOM. Overall, the main difference in the gameplay approach with Gears is the attitude and the enemy count that goes with it. You'll have to deal with more, and you'll have a lot more tools at your disposal to deal with it. Now let's talk about tactical layer mechanics. XCOM, and afterwards XCOM 2, has continued a standard 2 AP, or 2 action point system that has proliferated through almost every game in the genre, since it works really well. With a few notable exceptions, almost every turn-based tactical game similar to XCOM, even though the actual amount of ability points may differ, allows for a movement action and an attack or utility action per turn per unit. It's been a staple of most games like it, even those who have deviated a bit, such as Battle Brothers or Divinity, which also takes into account various weapons, armor, or items a character is carrying, but still mostly follows the same rules. Units are usually restricted to their supply of accessories or extra gear, such as quantity in grenades or ammunition, requiring the player to budget their resources outside the missions wisely so that they are properly equipped during them. Gears Tactics breaks from this standard slightly, opting to instead allow for more tactical freedom for units with a 3 AP system, which has most abilities not ending turns at all. Want to move, shoot, and throw grenades? You can actually do that, and you can choose any order you want every turn to do them in. Gears also allows for unlimited resources in most cases, but has implemented sometimes lengthy cooldown times between uses instead. This means that while you may have no limit to the number of grenades you wish to throw during a mission, you'll need to wait 5 turns between throws, a tactical restriction that can catch you off guard in many cases if you're not careful. For example, you may find yourself feeling the freedom to use explosives when enemies group together. They may even be inviting you with the temptation to do it bunched up like that, only to then present you with a situation immediately afterwards in which you really wish you hadn't put that item on a lengthy cooldown, such as wanting to close up a newly formed E-hole that's about to spawn reinforcements every single turn. And the only way to stop it is using that grenade that you just put on cooldown. Something to consider. With great power, well, yeah, you get it. Going along with the action points conversation, Gears Tactics not only allows 3 actions per soldier every turn and allows you the freedom to use actions however you wish, but it also allows for a soldier to perform a finisher move on a downed enemy to grant all of their teammates bonus ability points for that turn, sometimes boosting many of your soldiers above their starting ability point totals at the start of every turn. It's not uncommon for your soldiers to sometimes even take double the normal amount of actions that you'd normally have, depending on how your enemies and your actions turn out.
That shut you up.
It's, again, a game all about action and lots of power to the player. Just don't let that power go to your head when you're surrounded by a horde of enemies.
Me, asshole.
The last thing I'll add as it relates to action points and the tactical layer changes regarding them has to do with Overwatch. In Gears Tactics, Overwatch is a cone-shaped directional Overwatch, meaning that they actually have to walk or perform an action within the cone set by the overwatching unit. Overwatch will trigger 1 time per remaining action point that soldier has left when they trigger Overwatch. Yes, that means your soldier can actually shoot 3 times in a single Overwatch if they have the ammo to do it, and Overwatch triggers on any action unless that action specifically notes that it doesn't trigger it. That counts against you as well, and also remember that unlike XCOM 2, Gears Tactics will allow friendly fire, so be careful where you're pointing that thing. Overwatch is a powerful mechanic in XCOM, but it's even more powerful in Gears. Now, at first glance, you might think that the limitation of the cone-shaped Overwatch makes it less powerful, until you realize that this gives you deep control over the conditions in which that soldier fires their weapon. No longer will you have a soldier with a shotgun shooting clear across the map just because they see a moving target. Very unlikely to hit anyways. Instead, you get to choose the range at which your soldier consumes their ammunition. It makes a lot more sense. Overwatch in Gears also has the power to completely ruin the plans of the enemy unit, even if it doesn't kill. In XCOM, non-lethal damage on Overwatch still allowed the enemy unit to proceed with their turn as planned, but in Gears, Overwatch shots may interrupt actions entirely, and that includes against you as well, virtually wasting the available power that unit may have had a moment ago.
You ready for this?
Players really should consider removing Overwatches before proceeding through when faced with that red cone. And no, simply damaging an enemy doesn't promise the interruption of Overwatch in Gears Tactics. It's a really powerful mechanic, and your enemies will use it often since they know it's strong too. Switching gears and talking about the strategy layer, while we value all of our soldiers in XCOM 2, some more than others, the fact of the matter was that sometimes soldiers died, no matter how important they were to the cause. It was frustrating, but depending on how your economy shaped up, new soldiers could be recruited to at least fill their place in missions, if not specifically as well as the Fallen did. This is because at its core, XCOM had 2 primary components to gameplay: the tactical layer, in which what the core of this video has been discussing, and the strategy layer, where base building, resource management, and research took place, as well as the map we all know and love to scan. This simple but many times challenging balance between managing time and resources and using what you got on hand creates the foundation of the long game mission in XCOM 2, and for most newer players especially, was one of the most challenging elements in keeping pace with the enemy in XCOM 2, especially at harder difficulties. In my opinion, it's unfortunate, but Gears deviates from that a little bit too much. Gears sets out to be a story-focused game of hardcore action, but that has caused them to, whether intentionally or not, remove a lot of the depth that I personally loved from XCOM. Main characters critical to the narrative are considered essential for the game progression, being labeled as heroes. They are fully voiced soldiers, and to their credit, they're very well done, but they aren't allowed to die, meaning if you actually get one killed on a mission, the entire mission fails, and you'll need to try again. Sort of like a forced save scum.
A heartwarming reunion.
If we do this, you work for me, not Prescott. Got it?
You're the boss. Motor pool.
I'm generally okay with this decision since I really like good story and want to see it through, but I really wish they had allowed at least a mode where essential characters didn't exist in combat, similar to how XCOM has Bradford, Tygan, and Shen all carrying on the story along with no chance of death throughout a single mission.
Civvies. Running's all they're good for.
She shoots better than you. Okay, protect that truck!
That said, there's a really cool perk to having these deeper characters, which, by the way, you cannot rename, on the missions with you, and some of the banter that goes back and forth between them is actually really good. Of course, the heroes aren't the only soldiers on missions. You'll actually be able to recruit other soldiers, and those actually are renameable and are actually expendable. But the heroes are something to note for the sole reason that they aren't allowed to die, ever, to progress the story of the game. Also missing, at least when comparing to XCOM 2, is research of any kind. There's no map or travel choices of any kind like that, and no command center decisions to make, as well as not really any base or HQ structure management. Sure, there are side missions to do, and at many points of the game, side missions are required in order to unlock the story progression missions, but it's clear that Gears was intended to be a more story-driven experience and its nature than a strategy-driven experience, as it misses much of the entire second half of what makes XCOM a really replayable game. And yes, I do actually worry that this harms the replayability of Gears Tactics. Talking about soldier management, while the Gears team has omitted a research or base management end for the strategy game, they have made up for it slightly with having a much more extensive customization of soldier abilities, or at least a much more extensive selection of perks. It's debatable whether or not the numerous build orders and loadout perks you can obtain with Gears are as meaningful to the tactical capabilities in Gears Tactics compared to XCOM's soldier perk tree, in which every promotion meant a significant boost in capabilities, and in many cases playable style for that soldier. But nevertheless, there are a lot more options in Gears Tactics in every promotion of its classes. The basics behind the classes available are all there, with 4 different directions to select and path down as you outfit your soldiers how you see fit, focusing on perk choices that more cater to your style of play. Not entirely unlike XCOM in regards to retraining soldiers, you will have a limited number of opportunities to reset a soldier's perks if you wish to change them later, but that capability is only unlocked through story progression. Each of the classes, from the team player medic support class to more stealthy scout, up close and cut 'em up personally vanguard, the long range crits from downtown sniper, all the way to the heavy class wielding a gun larger than my son, all have their pros and cons, and the abilities accessible to them accentuate their strengths at your disposal on tactical missions. The last point I'll mention to bring a conclusion to my little video here has to do with boss battles. An element, when comparing it to XCOM 2, is mostly new. While the War of the Chosen expansion in XCOM 2 did bring a bit of boss battle encounter to the game, it was nowhere near the thrill that we see in Gears Tactics, aside from perhaps the final showdown in XCOM 2. Boss battles in Gears Tactics behave much more like an RPG boss battle does, with an extravagant showdown that feels super rewarding and gives you a cool sense of accomplishment, if you can make it through alive, that is. I've intentionally left out all footage or details of boss fights in this video because I cannot bring myself to spoil that for anyone here, but just know that eventually, as you progress through the chapters, you're going to want to make sure and work your way up and collect as many customizations and upgrades as possible, which are abundant in this game just as they are in XCOM, and be as prepared as possible for the big fights ahead of you. Thank you very much for watching this XCOM and Gears comparison video, highlighting what I feel are the most notable and important differences that you should be prepared for as a player coming from XCOM 2. I hope this helps you dive into the Gears Tactics campaign, and if you have any specific questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below, or come by the Twitch stream and ask any questions that you have there. Links are in the description. Thank you for watching my video, I appreciate it. Have a wonderful day, bye-bye.